there were 16 state attorney generals who sent a letter to Congress urging members to take action at the federal level to address the SHIELD laws. And these are laws that pro-abortion states are using to protect the criminal activity of those who are trafficking pro-abortion drugs into pro-life states. So more specifically, what are SHIELD laws? And what can Congress do to stop pro-life laws from being violated? Well, with me now to discuss this is South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson. Attorney General Wilson, welcome to Washington Watch. It's an honor to have you.
Jody, it's great to be with you. Thank you for having me on your program.
Well, it is our privilege in every way. Let's start with a simple explanation as to what SHIELD laws are and how they work.
Well, as you recall, to go back a little bit earlier, the Supreme Court in the Dobbs decision returned the issue to abortion to the states, and a number of states, including South Carolina, passed very or much more restrictive abortion laws prohibiting abortions from being conducted in our respective states. Other states that are pro-abortion states pass laws that shield doctors and various healthcare providers from performing those services, namely, for instance, like sending in abortifacient drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, mailing them in, doing mail order drugs, order them online, or even going into states and performing those types of medical services. And so these laws that these other pro-abortion states are passing are shielding those individuals from state prosecution. In the opinion of many of the states that signed the letter that you just talked about, this is a violation of the full faith and credit clause of the U.S. Constitution. And I joined that letter along with 15 other states to ask Congress to evaluate and to look into this issue to protect and promote the sovereignty of each of the individual states and prohibit states like California from passing SHIELD laws that prevent states like South Carolina from effectively enforcing its heartbeat bill or heartbeat law that we have in effect today.
So it sounds like, if I'm wrong, correct me, but kind of summarize, it sounds like these SHIELD laws are just blatant attempts to try to interfere with states like South Carolina and the various pro-life states and their ability to enforce criminal laws within their borders. And really, this whole thing is just disrupting our constitutional structure of states. Is that kind of a correct summary?
That's correct. And again, one example that some of these states are doing is they're passing laws that prohibit the extradition of people who violate the criminal laws of states like here in South Carolina who have those restrictive covenants on the act of performing an abortion. I was actually, earlier this past week, I was in the upstate of South Carolina. I was touring a local pregnancy center, and I was speaking with one of the volunteer workers there who informed me that, and I don't recall the name of the website right off the top of my head, but she said that she went onto this website. She was able to go into this website, put in her address that she was located here in South Carolina, give them their credit card number, and she was able to order abortifacient drugs that would terminate a pregnancy without seeing a doctor and without verifying her health history with the website. And then she could have just clicked send and could have gotten those drugs sent here into South Carolina. That is an example of how you could really compromise the health and safety of South Carolina citizens when they can do mail order drugs without even having a doctor being part of the process, let alone the fact that you're committing a crime. Wow.
Yeah, that's stunning. And to hear it be that easy for people to do, just a click, 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 and get these drugs that obviously end human life in the baby, but are also exceedingly dangerous for the mother. And they violate laws of states like what you're referencing there in South Carolina. So the question then, what can be done about it? Obviously, I think the Trump administration could be doing something about this. But for example, we have a petition about this, calling on them to instruct the Department of Justice to enforce the law, the Comstock Act, and to protect states' rights. So the administration could be involved, obviously, but also Congress. And you and 15 other attorneys generals of various states are calling on Congress to take action. What can they do?
Well, we're calling on Congress to evaluate this particular type of SHIELD law And obviously, we'd like them to preempt it, or at least evaluate if they could preempt it. There are currently cases right now in federal district court that could go to the Supreme Court, and it could be dispositive of whether or not these states passing shield laws are violating the full faith and credit clause of the U.S. Constitution. But in the interim, we would ask Congress to consider and evaluate whether federal preemptive laws, for instance, states passing shield laws that violate the rights of other states and the laws of other states, could be withheld federal funds in some form or fashion. I also joined a letter earlier this week that was led by the state of Kansas, along with 23 other states, that was sent to the Secretary of HHS, Robert F. Kennedy, and also Dr. Marty Makary with the FDA, asking them to evaluate drugs like mifepristone, which is an abortifacient drug that has been advertised as safe, is very safe, and has efficacy. But what we've learned is that it's 22 more times likely to have negative effects occur to the person taking it than it's advertised on the drug's label. We've asked the FDA and HHS to evaluate that and consider re-implementing the safety protocols that used to be placed on that, such as having to be seen by a doctor more than one time, being seen by a doctor 3 times, and having a doctor being involved, which the Obama and Biden administrations removed those safety protocols, or in the alternative, remove mifepristone from the market while it can be safely evaluated to determine if it truly is safe for people to take. But again, people are taking these drugs, women are taking these drugs, and it is having a very adverse effect on their health. And this is something that we have a duty to protect our citizens and make sure they are educated so they can protect themselves from these types of drugs.
Amazing. Well, it seems very clear that the battle for life certainly did not end with the Supreme Court Dobbs decision. That's a fact. Thank you so much, South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson. Thank you for taking the lead in this whole thing, and thank you for joining us this evening on Washington Watch.
Thank you.